Oh, they got two.
Mrs. Anderson, are we going live?
Yeah.
All right, please ensure that all your microphones are on, please, this evening and pulled close. Reviewing some audio over the weekend, and if that microphone's not close, you're not getting picked up on the DS, please. On the audio and video portion of it. Oh, where's my... Stand by. 7:01. All right. It is Monday, December 4th, 2017 at 7:01. Regular meeting for the City of Woodland Council. If I can get everyone to silence your cell phones and stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Things do look a little different this evening. Welcome, Mrs. Rounds. Thank you for stepping in. And I will have Mrs. Anderson take the roll.
Councilmember Jacobs?
Here.
Councilmember Fredericks?
Here.
Councilmember Hubbard?
Here.
Councilmember Chapman?
Here.
Councilmember McCall?
Here.
Councilmember Rounds?
Here.
Councilmember Heffernan?
Present.
All right, everyone is accounted for. Moving on for items not on the agenda. I have no one who's signed up. Now is your opportunity to step forward to speak this evening for items not on the agenda. All right, moving on to items on the agenda. No one has signed up. If you'd like to step forward and speak to an item on the agenda, now is your opportunity. Hey, get it together. All right, seeing no one, we'll move forward. All right. Mrs. Rams, you want me down here? We can hear everything. Your stamp is right here for me. Oh, I forgot my pen. Oh, he has a special. I've got my special pen. My special pen. My special pen. All right, I'm going to have you raise your right hand and repeat after me so you can get this on there. I, Carol Rounds,
I, Carol Rounds,
do solemnly affirm
do solemnly affirm
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
and Constitution and laws of the State of Washington,
and Constitution and laws of the State of Washington,
and that I will faithfully and impartially
that I will faithfully and impartially
perform and discharge
the
duty of office of the City of Woodland Council Position 2
of the City of Woodland Council Position 2
according to law to the best of my ability.
according to law to the best of my ability.
All right, congratulations.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. My finger's bleeding. I'm going to have to get you. Christmas lights up this weekend.
Hazard.
What's that? I need a drink. So we'll get you a new one since I've tainted this one. What's the date today? 4? 4th. Day of... All right. Maybe a second one too.
Okay.
I've got a clean bill, I swear. We're going to sign one more here. Just a second. Sorry, sign.
Hear that laughter out there. It's giving me a flashback to when I sat next to the other
And here's this
rounds.
for you. Welcome to the city. Thank you for being here. All right.
Can we get a handshake for the camera?
Oh, absolutely.
See, she's not the only one.
Stand by here. Come back down here. Okay. Mr. Boyce. All right. Thank you. All right. Well, it's nice to have a full house again. I mean, we miss Al, but Carol, we're happy you're here. All right. Oh, I need another pen. I gave it to Carol. I signed stuff. That's what you sign it and then give the pen away. That's what I thought you were supposed to do. All right. Chair will accept a motion to approve the agenda.
Move to approve the agenda with the exception of reordering the action items. Action item H, number 1, action item G, number 2, and action item F, number 3. It's a procedural reasoning, and I've already discussed this with Mr. Boyce.
Okay.
I'll second.
Motion by Councilmember McCall, seconded by Councilmember Rounds to, and I'm sorry, can you state what you said, just to reorder them?
It's just to reorder them. H is number 1, G is number 2, and F is number 3.
Okay. Okay.
Are you disagreeing?
Councilmember Rounds, do you have any discussion on that?
No.
Further discussion? Seeing none else, Mrs. Anderson, will you please take the roll, or take the vote?
Councilmember Hubbard?
Aye.
Councilmember Chapman?
Aye.
Councilmember Heffernan,
Aye.
Councilmember Jacobs?
Aye.
Councilmember McCall?
Aye.
Councilmember Fredericks?
Aye.
Councilmember Rounds?
Aye.
All right, moving on to reports of City Council. Ms. McCall?
Well, I attended a really wonderful event this weekend. I took my grandchildren to the Masonic Hall, and they had it decorated like a winter wonderland downtown. They probably had 30 Christmas trees in their one room and had cookies in the other room, and had a spectacular Santa Claus in there. It was really quite wonderful, and it was free to everybody in the community, and I'd highly recommend next year, if you didn't go this year, make sure you go next year, because they worked really hard, and it was, I think they had 3 or 4 train sets set up around different trees. It was really super cool. And then I also attended on Saturday Evergreen Habitat for Humanity's Ladies' Tea for their Women Build program, where they get a team of women architects and builders, and those that volunteer are all women and get to learn how to use power tools. It's pretty fun to get to learn how to use a radial arm saw, just saying. I went to support that, and it was quite wonderful. There was a great speaker that spoke from Providence that gave us a history of Mother Joseph at Fort Hudson and Fort Vancouver, and the transformation that she actually made in that community. It was very inspiring.
Nice. All right, thank you. Do you know how long the Masonic Lodge is doing that? Was that just over the weekend? Or?
It was only over the
Oh,
weekend. It was
okay.
Friday. It was Saturday and Sunday.
Okay, gotcha. Thank you. Anyone else? All right, seeing no one else. Moving on to reports of standing committee, Public Works. Who's the chair of Public Works?
Well, I'm not the chair, but I
Oh,
can do this.
Okay, sounds good. Go ahead.
Unless-
Ms. Humberg.
Unless Tracy wants to do it.
Tracy? Ms. Coleman? Sorry.
Yes.
Would you like to give the report this evening?
You want me to go through the 3-page report?
Yeah.
You can hit the highlights.
Okay,
They're
sure.
all highlights.
Sure.
They're all
I'd be-
highlights.
I'd be honored to.
Thank you, Ms. Coleman.
Okay, let me just hit the ones that we haven't hit in the past. So we have, let me look here.
You gotta talk into a microphone.
I will. I think they can hear me. Let's see. I want to hit the highlights. Just bear with me. Let me read them.
This is what we call putting you on the spot.
Exactly, and I enjoyed that. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Thank you for being here.
Yes, you're welcome. So we'll start out with sewer. We are looking at upgrading the pump on lift station number 7 this next year. We have submitted our general sewer plan for 2016, and we're waiting to hear back from DOE. We have let's see here. We are in the middle of our screw press dewatering project, and we expect that to be completed by January 20th with full testing. We had a main sewer line plugged today, and it was across from the American Family Diner at 1440 Gorig Street. We worked with the City of Vancouver to jet rod the line and unplugged it. We found that there was grease plugged in the main line, And so we actually reported that to the Department of Ecology, and we are sending a letter to the City of Vancouver to thank them for their assistance. We got that done within about an hour and a half today. Let's see. We submitted our CDBG Community Development Block Grant application for funds, and we are waiting for approval on that. We also are working this month with WashDOT to use our vac trucks to vacuum out our catch basins throughout the entire city. We started street sweeping along the streets on November 15th, and we will complete those by December 12th. Excuse me, December 15th. Let's see. We are going to fill out an application for Washington Utilities and Transportation Commission and try to combine that with a Safe Schools Route Grant to obtain some sidewalks along Westcott Avenue for the railroad crossing. So we'll be submitting that this year. We also have somebody who's interested in developing a property at the north end of Old Pacific Highway 99 next to the training center. So we're working with them at some possibilities to improve that roadway. Let's see, I'm meeting with, for the Scott Avenue Fire Station project, we are meeting with the architect and the engineer to try to wrap that up and find a date to move in within the next 30 days. We have the City Hall facade to do some improvements to the facade of the City Hall. We received one proposal, and we have a request out for more proposals for some paint and some cleanup for the City Hall. And we put out a work to paint the Public Works building. We put out a bid to paint the Public Works building. We received one bid back, and we've, out of 12 that we've put out, and so we're soliciting for more and some further warranty information on the bid that we received back. Let's see, we have a small problem with some moles in some of our parks, and so we're working on some methods of elimination for the moles to keep them out of neighboring homes' yards. So we're working right now on that. We also are working with the Washington State Noxious Weed Board to be part of a Cowlitz County research for any type of invasive ivy species. So we're working with them to be part of that program. On Gorig Park, we met with the Northwest Steelhead Association and the River Guys and the police department, and looking at co-jointly cleaning up and revitalizing that park and maybe putting some hours on that. That'll be coming towards council in the near future. We received the report back from the city of Longview on our tree study, and so we received that back just December 1st, so we'll be, November 20th, and so we'll be reviewing that to see what the proposed plan is for trees within the community. And that's it. How's that for a quick summary?
You did well.
All right.
All right, any questions for Public Works? All right, moving on to Finance and General Government. Mr. Fredericks.
We met. I didn't get a copy of the minutes, and I didn't ask for a copy of the minutes today like I should have. So I'll defer to Councilmember Heffernan or Ms. Anderson, but I believe all of the items that we are discussing are either part of the budget or on tonight's agenda or have been on a previous agenda for approval, if I'm not mistaken.
I thought we had briefed council following our meeting previously.
I think so.
It was about the Humane Society and their request for increased funds and the licensing fee, for the state licensing fee, online portal. So I think we've already gone over it.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay. Our next meeting is scheduled for January.
I saw a schedule that came out. Was that just council meetings that came out and not, not committee meetings for next year?
I believe so.
Okay, so we'll be discussing that at the,
I think we wanted to touch base with committee members in the new
Okay.
year about when they want to meet,
okay,
so.
got it, okay. Perfect, thank you. That's all you had, Mr. Fredericks?
Yeah.
Okay, any questions for Mr. Fredericks this evening? All right, seeing none. Public Safety, Ms. McCall.
Okay, we had a meeting this evening for just a few updates. And this was my last public safety meeting for being the chair, as I won't be on the committee next year. We did have a short discussion that the current committee, of 3, there will only be 1 remaining, Councilmember Fredericks, because Councilmember Heffernan and I will no longer be on the council. So that will have to be rectified after the first of the year. Currently, we do meet on the 3rd Monday, which is going to fall on a holiday next year, so it would be, the next meeting would be Tuesday, January 16th, if the new committee chooses to follow the same schedule that we've shared in the past. The 2 main items of business actually there were two main items of business were the update on the new fire station. The doors will likely not open until after the first of the year, as Ms. Chapman stated. They're finalizing some concrete work. We did discuss a date to do a dedication before the end of the year, and determined that would, we wanted to do that during the day when it was light, which I realize does make it difficult, but we landed on Wednesday, December 20th at 3 p.m. so that it will still be light outside. So that is the date that's been determined, and I know that Chief Jackson will then be making sure that all of council is notified if they want to be attending. It's not going to be a ribbon cutting because we're not opening the doors to actually use it, but we're just dedicating the building.
Do I need to speak at that? Or is that someone else?
We would be delighted to have you speak.
I'm just kidding. I saw everybody go, whoa, no, don't let it happen. Sorry, go ahead, Ms. McCall.
So then they also are putting a new crew out of the Charter Oak Station on 299th, which is west of Louisville Highway. That's going to help the survey and ratings of Clark County Fire and Rescue, which helps us with our insurance ratings as residents. And then they will also be reaching out to the new council members on this Public Safety Committee regarding an annexation timeline if we're going to proceed with doing annexation into Clark County Fire and Rescue, and how that would happen and who would be working on that. So that discussion will happen after the first of the year. Then the following was our update from Chief Kelly. They have finished the police department promotional and hiring process and decided on who they are promoting to the sergeant position, which I guess I should defer to the chief on who that is. I guess it's public knowledge.
Officer Jim Keller will be promoted to sergeant the 1st of January.
And congratulations to Officer Keller. And then they are working on interviews for the vacant position. Those are set up for next week. It has been 6 months since we've been fully staffed, and so this is going to be a great thing that we get another position filled. And then another thing that there's 2 more things. One is that they're working with the new officer from Kalama doing field officer training. Is it FTO or
FTO, yeah, field training officer.
Field training officer with and partnering with Kalama and with the chief from Kalama, and so that officer will be here. That new officer will be here for 20 days, and I believe it's Officer Keller that will be working with her. And then lastly, Shop with a Cop is going to be going on Saturday at 9 a.m. at Walmart, and several other organizations. I was very impressed. I didn't write them all down, but Chief Kelly has reached out to other organizations as well, and we have Lasender and Ridgefield and several other organizations that are participating with our Shop with a Cop group. So a lot of kids are going to have a lot better Christmas because of some people's generosity and our cops taking care of getting that done. I think that's great.
Yeah, Donnie and Jim get all the credit for that, Officer Keller and Donnie Connor.
They're the arm twisters?
They are, and they do a fantastic job, and Donnie's taking care of all the behind-the-scenes stuff, and Jim has gone out and solicited lots of donations from local businesses.
Well, a huge
And
thank you
more,
to both of
so,
them then,
yeah.
from the whole community. And that was it, and then we adjourned the meeting, so.
All right. Any questions for Ms. McCall? Chief, how many kids are expected to come through on Saturday?
I think she said like 150,
Nice job.
but that's
Yeah.
From other areas as well, Kalama, Ridgefield, the center, and us.
Awesome.
And we've
Awesome.
got officers from all those, DOC, and working on state, but county's going to be there too, so
State guys are a little hard to get a hold of.
they're committed.
They are committed.
Elsewhere.
Yes. Thank you. Appreciate you setting that up. Thank you for the report. Human Resources, Ms. Humberg.
Our last meeting was November 27th, and that was brought to our last council meeting. We did a change or tried to update the policy. And our next meeting is the first Monday in January 2018, and I'm not sure what the date is.
Okay.
Like the 4th? Oh, the first one's a holiday. Okay, so it'll be Tuesday.
Tuesday the 2nd.
Yeah.
Is that a regular council? That's going to be the regular council meeting, correct? Okay.
Yes.
Usually we get
Calendar.
here's a calendar for next year that we vote on,
Yeah.
I think.
Mhm.
Or maybe it's just in our packet. Okay, excellent.
All right. Any questions for Ms. Humberg? All right. Moving on to reports of city officers. All right, buckle up. I've got a lot. No, I don't have that much. So Veterans Day happened before on last month. I don't think we've had a regular meeting since then.
Not a regular.
Not a regular meeting, okay.
It happened Thursday.
I just want to make sure I wasn't
No.
double reporting here. Great job by the VFW, I appreciate all the work that they put into that. Lots of people out taking part in the ceremony down on Davidson, which it was awesome. I was out there, the chief was out there. There was a lot of folks out there, and the weather held up for us, so. And then I received a tour of the VFW Post, and they're doing wonderful things down there. I had no idea that they brought in a person now, and you could probably help out with this a little bit, a person that's doing outreach, I would call it outreach, to those in our community that are veterans that are somewhat struggling, but now we've got an actual position in town
Yes.
to help them.
Right, we have a service officer now. who,
Okay.
If you're a veteran and you have issues, she's there on Thursday from 8 to 5, or noon to 5, I believe.
Yeah.
And she's doing an awesome job, and we're so thankful that she's willing to donate her time to do that.
Absolutely.
I'd also like to add that the veterans wanted me to thank you all, the council members, the mayor, and the chief of police, and the officer that came, for coming and supporting what we're trying to do.
Absolutely.
It's important stuff, and sometimes it's kind of hard to make it all work, so your support is invaluable. Thank you.
Thank you for saying that. It was nice to get the tour of the VFW, of the Post down there, and all the upgrades that they've made. Looks like they've been painting and putting pictures up on the wall. I mean, they've been doing some new things down there. But the resource officer, is that? Resource officer told me a story of...
That's a service officer.
Service officer, of a 93-year-old gentleman that lives here in town that was struggling to make mortgage or rent.
Couldn't make rent and eat and do the medicine.
And they've got him hooked up, and now they're taking care of him. So it's those types of services that we desperately need. So we appreciate everything that they do out there. It was a nice event. I've also attended 7 high school basketball games over the last week. It's been very busy at my house, and just out there supporting the kids. I encourage everyone to go and catch a basketball game. It's fun to go out there and support the youth of the community, and I know that they appreciate it when there's a crowd there. Ms. Coleman didn't touch on the new decor in the roundabout. right over here.
Yeah.
We've got some, we've got some lit trees, and our deer population is continuing to grow.
Yes,
It
wonderful.
appears. I've seen a few things online, so it was quite the pranksters last week after those went in, and we pranked right on back. So who says government doesn't have a sense of humor?
Yes.
Okay. So, and then also all the decorations have gone in on downtown. It looks like there's been some additions this year with some extra lighting on some of the other trees that are not part of the light poles. So it's beautiful down there. Nice job getting that together. Thank you. Railroad crossing has been improved. I know Mrs. Johnson is in the gallery this evening. She was instrumental in making sure that happened over at West Scott. So I'm hoping that everyone is pleased with the upgrade that's been done. Going over doesn't feel like you're going over a roller coaster now. I have finally gone over there. It's very nice. It's much better than it used to be. So.
Don't take out the undercarriage on your car.
Yes, you don't do that anymore. So I appreciate that. Moving on to a few things that are on my list here for you to discuss. City Action Days are January 24th and 25th in Olympia. I need a show of hands, and that includes the two in the audience, Mrs. Graham and Mr. Plaza, of who will be attending those 2 days so we can make arrangements because those haven't been done yet. Okay? 1, 2?
January.
January 24th and 25th.
I'll be here.
Okay. Mr. Plaza and Mrs. Graham, yes? Okay. And Carl, you said yes. Okay. More to come on that. Council retreat. I'm going to bring that forward at the next meeting. I think I got that right. Agenda or the legislative priority. An off year with the legislators, so I don't think that we can really ask for money, but maybe, so we can discuss those and get those down on paper before we head up that way. Council retreat dates, also again for Mrs. Graham and Mr. Plaza out in the gallery. I've listed 3 dates in January and 3 dates in February. I'm looking for one of those to work for hopefully all, if not the majority. I've got January 13th, 20th, and 27th, and February 3rd, 10th, and 24th. And I guess I'll start down with Mr. Jacobs right now. What
As
days?
of right now, all of those are open for me.
Okay.
What are the dates again? I'm sorry, I skipped.
13, 20, 27, February 3rd, 10th, and 24th.
When's Martin Luther King Jr. Day?
Oh, I didn't factor that one in.
Well, the reason I asked is
January 15th. It's the 15th.
I know.
What's the
I need to view him.
what President's Day? What day is that? Just asking, you know, your holidays.
It exists.
Right there.
Middle of February.
Yeah, 19th
Ask
of
Gina.
February.
Gina's the one that's going
Yeah.
to know. Ask Mrs.
19th.
Excuse me, Mrs. Anderson.
It's the 19th. Looks like I skipped that weekend as well.
So all of them appear to be good, except for 113 and 224.
Okay, 113, Fredericks is a no, and the 24th at Fredericks is a no. Okay, Councilmember Humbert.
All of them are open for me, but I would like to see us do this prior to our city action days. So I would.
The 13th or the 20th?
Or the 20th.
You're advocating for those, okay.
Yes.
Carl? Or Ms. Chapman?
Just let me know.
Okay. Mrs. Rounds?
The 13th would be better for me,
Okay.
because I'm going to be gone.
Is there-
Or the 24th
Oh.
of February.
When is the,
January 20th is our banquet.
oh, okay. It's the banquet, okay. Okay. Mrs. Graham?
I can do the 13th or the 27th, or the 3rd or the 10th. I
Okay.
can't do the 20th, because I'm tied at the chamber.
Okay, gotcha. Okay. Mr. Plaza?
I can make myself available on those days.
Okay, so it looks like 27, the 3rd, or the 10th are, everyone is available. The 13th, Mr. Fredericks is not available.
The 27th, I'm not available.
Oh. So the February 3rd?
No,
No good?
I won't be back then.
What about the 10th?
No, I'll be back on the 24th.
The newest member is the
Wait,
most
now,
difficult
I may be
member.
back the 10th. I'll have to look.
I know she's on the move. What, you'll be back on the 10th?
I'll have to look.
Darwin, will you be back on the 10th?
Like you would know.
So you said no to the 3rd, the 20th, and Mr. Fredericks, you're definitely out on the 13th?
I'm out of town.
Oh, okay. And
10th maybe.
And the 24th is a bad day.
When's President's Day again?
The 19th.
I don't know the dates of that.
Okay.
I'm in
Why don't we,
Salt Lake or Denver that week.
so why don't we go for the 10th? We'll start with the 10th as our day of February. And if Mr. Rounds can make sure Mrs. Rounds gets back by the, I'm kidding. If you could kind of double check on that, and if not, we'll keep it a little bit fluid.
I think we might, but I'll
Okay.
have to look and check.
Okay, sounds good.
Okay.
Thank you.
What time is that tentatively scheduled for?
Probably 9, I imagine.
10th at 9?
Yeah, we're gonna do it here in the chambers.
10th at 9.
The 10th at 9 right now, yeah. It's better than 8.
No, it's not better than the 13th or the 20th.
I know. Could we do it on the, Mrs. Graham won't be here. Okay, never mind. All right, we'll start there. Hey, we're starting the conversation earlier every year. All right, I think, okay, council. All right, moving on to I've got a couple other items here. I want to talk about, who said, I thought somebody was complaining, I was still going. No? All right, action item H. I'm kind of coming into council here with my hat in my hand a little bit here, adopting ordinance number 1400, the personnel policy, amending ordinance 1391 to include exempt salary policy. I'm asking that this action was taken last meeting, and I'm asking that you undo it. The changes that were made, although a step in the correct direction, it is not the correct path, in my opinion, of course. If a change in the salary step plan is to be made, I ask that it be made for all employees that are listed, not just a small selection. If council cannot come to an agreement to include all the employees, then I ask the steps taken at the last meeting be undone and a COLA be implemented instead with our current salary plan. The topic will also be included in the first council retreat of 2018 if that's the route that council chooses to take. The action taken on November 30th creates a negative impact for daily operations. As the person at the head of daily operations, I see the impacts firsthand along with Mr. Boyce. My goal is always to create an environment that is fair and balanced, and this approach, I believe, would leave a positive impact on the employee and organization if all are included. The action taken goes against my leadership and forces me to implement an action I do not agree with and cannot get behind. Now, I realize this has been a priority for me since day one in 2016, but this is not what I had in mind when I brought it forward. Please take the appropriate changes on this item very seriously before moving it forward. I also want to comment on the Ladles of Love program. Your decisions to waive the community center fee had a tremendous positive impact on our community and local church. The Ladles of Love, for those of you that don't know, was a woman here in town that has been offering up food once a month along with the Clover Valley Community Church upriver to feed folks towards the end of the month. For those of you that caught the story in the Columbian, it had a tremendous impact to that program and to the person running it. The body should be very proud of the decision that they made to waive the $35 fee. I too, as the mayor of this community, am appreciative that council took those steps to waive that because it has had a tremendous impact. And just back to action item H, even the smallest of decisions can make a huge impact. So please keep up the great work. That's all that I have. Mr. Boyce.
Okay, just a few things, I'll keep it brief. Tomorrow, we're having our all-city safety day for employees. once a year, we have a safety meeting where everyone gets together. We report on what the safety committee has accomplished throughout the year. So that'll take place tomorrow morning at 8 a.m. here in this room. We included the Big Idea Board letter we received from Mr. Burke in the packet, so I wanted to make sure everyone was aware of that. Then just upcoming community events. We have one that's not on the list right now. The COG is looking at developing a new economic development district, and they will be holding a meeting in Woodland on December 12th at the Woodland Middle School Library at 6 to 7:30 p.m. So I will send out an email. There it is.
You make copies.
Okay, great. So I wanted to make sure everyone's aware of that. December 7th, the Chamber of Commerce after hours at Lewis River Golf Course at 5 p.m. 5 p.m. happens. December 18th, reception. We want to recognize the outgoing and retired council members, Heffernan, McCall, and Swindell. That will happen at 6:30 prior to the meeting on the 18th. January 2nd, oath of office for the new incoming council members, Graham Plaza, and Mr. Fredericks will also take the oath again. And January 20th, the Chamber of Commerce installation banquet will happen at 5 p.m. at Heathman Lodge in Vancouver. So that's my report for this evening.
Questions for Mr. Boyce or myself? Mr. Chapman.
On this one, Mr. Boyce, do we need to post anything in case more than 3 council members show up to it?
Well, yeah, I guess I'd need to know who's attending. If we have a quorum, we should
That's what kind of
we should advertise that.
Do they have to have it?
No, we just don't sit together.
Just don't
we
sit
can-
together?
This would be the same as the AWC meetings.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
There's
That's on to make
several
sure.
meetings we all go to that we just don't, so we just will be sure we don't sit
refrain from
together.
discussing
Yeah.
city business with each other.
Okay. Mr. Ewing.
Well, I'm happy to report on Saturday when I was at the elected officials essentials that I saw 3 of our elected officials, and they all conducted themselves with honor. Other people from there's one other person from the city that was there talked a lot. I'm not sure that the same could be said for that person. But anyway, it was an interesting afternoon.
Don't everybody look at me. I wasn't there.
It was me.
It was Mr. Ealing, I have a feeling.
It was me. So anyway, and so I made it out of there alive, and was here tonight. The other thing that deals with the agenda tonight on the consent items on E, on the emergency declaration for Public Works, the statute says that we're also to include written findings, and I think under the statute that either Pete or Will can add to the record the fact that it was an emergency, and it was an emergency that would, if not corrected, would result in potential loss of property or have health consequences. So that's the only thing. It's just kind of a cross the T, dot the I thing.
Okay.
That's it.
Questions for Mr. Ealing this evening?
Not yet.
Oh, well.
Are you?
When we get into the action items, possibly.
Okay. Perfect. All right. Mrs. Anderson. Questions for Mrs. Anderson this evening? Chief?
Nothing, sir.
Questions for the chief? Other chief?
As stated, we'll be having a dedication of the fire station on the 20th. We'll be looking forward to that. We'll have a more publicized public event after the first of the year, once it's completely finalized and we're functional out of that facility.
All right.
We'll be looking forward to that, and we'll have a year-end report to the council in January with some statistics and that sort of information.
Awesome. Thank you, Chief Jackson.
That's all.
Any questions for Chief Jackson? I thought that was a hand raising. Community Development, Planning Commission met this past week. Was it this, it was this past week, wasn't it? And they're meeting again on the 21st? Is that what I'm seeing? Okay, so they'll be meeting again on the 21st. Public Works,
I gave you all I had, but I do have one other thing to add.
Ms. Coleman.
So we had a complaint a couple sessions ago from a customer in the area that had a concern over the water quality, the city's water quality. So I have looked over all the reports from our water treatment plant. I have been in contact with the state in regards to our reporting. Our water quality is excellent. We are well within the means. And so what I've done is I've met with the individual and assured her that I will work with her to address the situation in her home. We did go and flush a main water line around her home, and she agreed that that did make a small improvement. And so something else we're looking at is she's at the end of the line. We're looking at possibly increasing the chlorination in the system to be well within our means that may take that smell away. We're working with her and hope to resolve it here within the next 30 days.
Good, thank you, Ms. Coleman. Questions for Ms. Coleman? All right, moving on. Reports of ad hoc committees. Cowlitz Wahkiakum Council of Governments, Ms. Humbert.
Our meeting was held on Thanksgiving, so it obviously was canceled, and we tried to move it to the Thursday prior, and the ports had meetings, and the school districts had meetings, so we didn't have a meeting in November. Our next meeting will be December 21st at 1 o'clock or 12 o'clock in Kelso.
All right, thank you. Legislative, AWC and Legislative, I've already reported on that this evening somewhat. Oh, I know what I forgot. I did forget one thing. Senator Cantwell's office will be in town on Wednesday. I'll be giving them a tour, not Senator Cantwell herself, but representative. I will be giving a tour and having lunch, and I may be roping Mr. Boyce into the car with us. They've reached out to myself and asked what Woodland's up to economic-wise and what we're doing for the region and how they can help. So they're looking to come here and see what we're doing, especially with the 426 acres that we've got the feasibility study out there with. And then I'm just going to take them around for about an hour and show them all the wonderful things that Woodland has to offer. I think my comment to them was, come on over and I will impress you with everything we can do for you. So hopefully, I'm assuming it's going to be a positive meeting compared to the last one I may have had.
When is she here?
So Wednesday. It'll be this Wednesday at 11, and then we'll be having lunch afterwards. So just Representative, not Senator Cantwell herself. So hopefully, be good things for Woodland. So, and then also the City Action Day, so we've already reported on the AWC. Ms. Humbert, Downtown Woodland Revitalization.
Our meeting was called to order at 9 o'clock on the 14th of November. Minutes from the October meeting, were not approved, and they were deferred to our December meeting because she wasn't able to get them written for us. This was also our annual meeting, so Vivian gave the treasurer's report. Reported on this year's Hot Summer Nights program was a wash. Vivian passed out the 2018 budget, and it was discussed and approved. Tom asked if this was the time of year to send out membership letters. We have already sent out some information, but further are in progress. Jeanette reported that her job on the CURB grant is done, but she wants to stay on as a volunteer. Report has been forwarded to City Administrator Pete Boyce for review, and Jeanette has not heard how the review is going. Do you know?
It's progressing. I'm also interpreting what the other consultant is providing.
Awesome, thank you. Discussion on keeping the website up to date. Jeanette said we had put way too much work into this program and we should not let it die. Discussion followed on how to fund and continue work on the plan. City of Woodland and Port of Woodland joint efforts should be a good way. Jeanette said she would be willing to help. Michelle Budd wants to put up Christmas lights and needs funding for 20 more strings. Jennifer said to bring a proposal to the Port of Woodland Commissioners for consideration. And then we had election of officers. President is Tom Golick. I'm the Vice President. Treasurer is Vivian Mosby, and Secretary is Jennifer Keene. Board of Directors is Mike Watts, J.J. Burke, and Jeanette Scabelli. The election was unanimous. I am going to take over I and Jennifer are going to take over the flag project, so we will meet, and we would like to be able to put flags up on Main Street at least at every holiday, or every holiday. And we adjourned at 10:07.
Okay. Questions from Ms. Humbert? Because I've got a few. I know, I'll make it quick. So the money for the grant, I know you said it, I know that the city contributed some money to that. Was all that spent, or is there still some left over after the grant was paid?
I believe it's all been expended.
Yeah,
Okay, gotcha.
That
Okay.
was my understanding.
The lights, the new lights that are in downtown, is that
Michelle put those up.
Okay.
She'd like to be able to put them in the branches.
in the branches
as
itself?
well.
Okay. Does Jeanette live here in town?
No, she lives in Longview.
Oh,
Actually,
okay.
She lives in Castle Rock, actually.
Oh, okay. That's nice.
It's right on the Castle Rock border.
Okay. Is anything being done about the windows of the empty buildings or anything?
We
for
talked
the
about
holiday?
that, and I'm hoping that at our next meeting, we will decide what we're going to do. We were talking about things like asking maybe the library to put books in the window, see if the school can do something for us. Maybe some of those kids need something for their good citizenship
Gotcha.
thing. So we have some ideas, and that was on the agenda for our meeting next Tuesday.
Okay, perfect. Was Miss Bond at the meeting?
For a few...
Did she-
No, she wasn't. No. not
Was
this
it
one.
discussed when they're stuffing the stockings this year?
No.
Have we heard anything about
I
that?
haven't heard
Okay.
anything about that.
Got it. All right. Thank you very much. I said it was just a few. All right. The chair will accept a motion to approve the consent items.
I'd like to pull both. Well, I want to pull E, for sure. And then,
C and
bear
D.
with me just one second. Which one of the, C or D, which one authorizes payment for the insurance?
C.
And I'd like to pull C, C and E. So I'll make
C as in cat and E as in Edward?
Yes, I'll make a
Okay.
motion to approve A, B, and D on the consent agenda.
Isn't D tied to C? I don't know how I can approve D without approving C, so.
I'd like to pull C, D, and E then, and I'll make a motion to approve A and B.
I'll second that.
All right. Consent items A and B for approval by Mr. Fredericks and Ms. McCall. Will Mrs. Anderson please take the vote?
Councilmember Hubbard?
Aye.
Councilmember Chapman?
Aye.
Councilmember Heffernan?
Aye.
Councilmember Jacobs?
Aye.
Councilmember McCall?
Aye.
Councilmember Fredericks?
Aye.
Councilmember Rounds?
Aye.
All right. A and B have been approved. We'll start with consent item C. Mr. Frederick. Oh, sorry.
Motion to approve action item C.
Second.
Moved by Councilmember Fredericks, seconded by Councilmember Humbert. Councilmember Fredericks.
And I should have just called over today to ask this question, but I didn't. I ran out of time. Can you tell me if, has this been adjusted in the budget this year? Or is the budget that we're set to possibly approve tonight, has that been changed?
Yes, in the paperwork I put on your desk, we included an increase for the insurance based on what we're experiencing here in 2017.
So this one's different than what's in our packet.
Right, we had previously budgeted around 176,000, 174,000, I believe. And we just became aware of the new rate. Clerk treasurer and myself met with the insurance representatives. A lot of it is based on not just claims, but some of the issues the insurance industry is facing as a whole. So there were rate increases adopted by the Cities Insurance Association to deal with that, including Apparently, auto claims overall nationally are increasing, partially due to distracted driving, they're saying. And because of the hurricanes, there's been an increase in property type claims, and insurance companies are passing some of those rates down.
Mr. Fredericks.
Have we reviewed the list, and I'm sure we've reviewed to make sure that every vehicle, because I saw a lot of vehicles on there. Maybe I just wasn't aware that we had so many, but I want to has that happened?
Yes, we've reviewed inventory with department directors, and we've cross-checked it with what the insurance company had on their books, and yes, we've also reviewed valuations of buildings and made sure everything that should be listed is, and no additions. So, yeah, everything's been updated and cross-checked.
And that would include the valuation of contents in those buildings?
Yes.
Okay.
We had some adjustments we had to make at the water treatment plant. Most of the contents in there should be in the building value as they're permanently affixed in the building. Last time we had them split between the building value and contents. Technically, because they're bolted down and permanently installed, they should be part of the structure itself.
Ms. Humberg?
No comment.
Okay. Further discussion? Ms. McCall?
I guess I had some questions as to this that's here on my desk. I don't know what's different. The date's the same, it doesn't say revised, and I don't know what's marked up to show that this has changed, because all the numbers are the same as what, on the cover sheet, and the text is the same as what I have in my packet in front of me. So I have nothing that tells me that this is different and why this is different.
Right. And I apologize for that with the short turnaround. It was difficult to get it prepared on time. I can walk you through some of the changes so everyone understands what the differences are.
I guess my other question on this is, every other year that we've gone through the budget in October or November, ProPEC comes and gives us a presentation and walks through this with us. And it appears that they sent us this information telling us that the rate was going up for the renewal for 2017-18 on November 6th. And so it was received by the city probably less than a week after that. But now we're in a position where we've got it as a consent item and we're making amendments to our final budget, which we're supposed to approve tonight. And that's of concern to me, because this is an operational thing, that if we say, no, don't do this, we have legal and risk ramifications for saying no. However, the information has been in the office. I guess if it was November 6th, it should have been there the week of the 10th, or it doesn't say, it's not stamped as to when it was received, but...
Right. And the reason for that is it wasn't received right after the date that's posted on the letter. They wanted to wait until the insurance folks could come and present it to staff. We had that presentation just late last week.
Might jump in real quick. I know that you guys are discussing, but I know Mrs. Ripp has been involved with this and trying to get these numbers, and it's been challenging. So, and I've been made aware of that, and I just want to make that known that this it was dropped on our lap, but it's not without trying to get it to the city sooner.
If I may, we decided that the Finance Committee a few years ago decided to not have Propel come and provide us a presentation before council like they had done in the past for a few variety of reasons. But certainly it's something that, we can entertain and look at going forward, but it wasn't something that they provided a whole lot of value, and they were coming down here at an expense. I don't know who's paying that, but somebody is. To have them come down here and tell us what all the changes are, even though we have the same thing in writing. I don't need someone to travel down here from wherever they're traveling down here to read a document to me. So
Right.
that's kind of why we said, you're not adding a whole lot of value here, save your time, save ours. If we have any questions, we'll call you. It makes it problematic, though, when we get it this late.
And so that would be, I guess, my suggestion on the path forward, which can be accepted or not, because I won't be sitting here. But I believe they should come before council and be scheduled to come before council. And we don't need to go through every detail of this policy, but we need to know what's changing, what's been added, what's been subtracted, and what the difference in cost is. And having a set time for them to come and be here and tell them that they have to give us that number before we're doing the budget, that gives us a little bit of leverage with them to make sure that we're receiving it and getting that information in a timely manner. And it also gives us an opportunity to know what it is that has changed and why. I get really upset when I'm looking at something like this that is this big of a difference in money, and it's at the very, very, very last minute sliding in. I mean, literally on the dais as I'm walking in tonight. Those are just my comments on it. I'm going to vote yes for this. I'm only going to vote yes for this because it's a risk factor for the city if I don't. But I'm doing it under duress.
Mrs. Heffernan?
Just wanted to confirm that the monies to cover the shortfall are not coming from our general reserves.
The monies to cover the change are coming out of fund balance in the general fund. Not 301.
So,
Go ahead.
Mr. Fredericks?
So the letter here dated November 6th outlines a lot of the reasoning. A lot of what was discussed earlier was exactly what I know staff has gone through and done a lot of the work. It might be nice to have even an additional piece of paper that reviews the items that Councilmember McCall has requested, because it makes a lot of sense to be able to show, here's what's changing, here's what we added, here's what we subtracted, and provide a high level, these are some of the changes that we made specifically in Woodland. It would be good to have that. It would also be good to add to the Finance Committee's calendar what other options we have available to ourselves other than one. We're always presented with the same one every single year, and I'd like to start looking at, I'd like to have the committee, once it's decided who's going to be on that committee, to look at what other options do we have to us, and make sure that we have something else to look at besides one.
All right, Mrs. Anderson, will you please take the vote on consent item C?
Councilmember Heffernan,
Aye.
Councilmember Jacobs,
Aye.
Councilmember Hubbard.
Aye.
Councilmember Chapman.
Aye.
Councilmember Rounds.
Aye.
Councilmember McCall.
Aye.
Councilmember Fredericks.
Aye.
All right, moving on to consent item D, authorize renewal of broker insurance services with Propel Insurance for 2017-2018.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Councilmember Fredericks, seconded by Councilmember McCall. Councilmember Fredericks.
I have no discussion.
Councilmember McCall.
No further discussion.
Further discussion? Mrs. Anderson, will you please take the vote on consent item D?
Councilmember Rounds.
Aye.
Councilmember Fredericks.
Aye.
Councilmember Jacobs.
Aye.
Councilmember Hubbard.
Aye.
Councilmember Heffernan,
Aye.
Councilmember McCall,
Aye.
Councilmember Chapman.
Aye.
All right, moving on to consent item E, ratify and confirm emergency declaration for lift station number 1, force main sewer repair.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Councilmember McCall, second by Councilmember Humberg. Councilmember McCall.
Okay, this appears to have been an emergency repair that has already been done, and now we are ratifying the expenditure of $3,865.87 to correct the situation. I don't have a problem so much with the process as I do, obviously, it's something that needed to be done. It's a DOE situation. It needs to get addressed, or there's other environmental concerns. My issue, since I have the opportunity to say something about it, is the continued layout of this council agenda summary sheet in these situations. The way that this is laid out, this is a worksheet for that BARS line item. This isn't a worksheet. This is not a council agenda summary sheet for me as a council member to look at this and determine money that's being spent, why we're spending it, is it a one-time or recurring expense, is it an unexpected expense, what's the risk if we don't approve, and what's the benefit to the public for approving this to happen. Those are the questions that we have sitting in these chairs, and this is a budgetary clerical worksheet to be entered into the budget spreadsheet. This isn't information, this isn't clear information for us. So I've presented alternates at least 3 times while I've sat up here that answered those questions that I want answered, and it's never been addressed. So I don't have a problem with this expenditure on money or the process that happened, though. This was an emergency situation that needed to be taken care of. It's a nominal amount of money, so I recommend approval.
Councilmember Humbert.
No comment.
Mr. Fredericks.
I'm just going to abstain from voting on this. My company does business with Tepani Underground in Battleground, and this would be a conflict for me because my compensation plan is based upon if I grow this customer, the product that they use, I would receive a compensation, albeit a tiny portion of that would come from this account. I just need to abstain after consultation with the city attorney.
Further discussion?
I have a comment too. One of the reasons why I brought it up too is that this is kind of a belts and suspenders, cross your T, dot your I sort of thing, is that the statute allows us to waive competitive bidding requirements in the event there's an emergency and that there needs to be a finding. So this is kind of like a check and balance sort of situation where you have authority of people who know what they're doing that recognize there's an emergency, but then the council comes back and ratifies that action by saying, yes, in fact, there was an emergency that justified waiver of competitive bidding requirements due to the fact that it's something that had to be acted on immediately. So that's why this is important.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Ely. Further discussion? All right, Mrs. Anderson, will you please take the vote?
Councilmember Chapman.
Aye.
Councilmember Heffernan.
Aye.
Councilmember McCall.
Aye.
Councilmember Jacobs.
Aye.
Councilmember Humbert.
Aye.
Councilmember Rounds.
Aye.
Councilmember Fredericks.
Abstain.
Thank you. We'll take a quick break. It is 8:05. We'll take 5 minutes.
Project for next year. Huh? Oh, yeah.
All right, it's 8:16. That was more than 5 minutes. Apologize. All right, moving on to action item H. Adopt ordinance number 1400, personnel policy amending ordinance 1391 to include exempt salary.
Before we start that, can
Yes.
I bring something back?
Okay.
Is that possible? Okay, Big Idea Board. The letter that JJ sent is included in our packet, and we need to let them know if we are in favor of doing this again, which is just bringing money to the city. We get a certain amount that we can spend on tourism to help put heads in beds.
Okay.
He listed all of the things that all of the communities have done.
Okay. Are you making a,
Going to make a motion?
okay.
It's not on our agenda as an action item.
Okay.
No, it's not.
Mr. Boyce?
Mr. Mayor, City Council, I believe the hotel motel tax group discussed it.
We did.
And it's actually incorporated in the budget as
Okay.
part of their recommendation.
Okay.
So that funding is in the preliminary budget at this point, based on the recommendation of the hotel motel tax committee.
So if the budget passes, then have we satisfied the needs of the board, Ms. Humberg?
I believe so. If the budget passes, if the budget doesn't pass, then we'll have to talk about it again.
They won't be the only ones. Okay, sounds good.
Well, I knew that it was in there, but I wanted to make sure that everybody knew what was.
Okay, gotcha. All right. All right. Moving back on to action item H, adopt ordinance number 1400, personnel policy amending ordinance 1391 to include exempt salary policy, first reading.
Move to approve a 2.5% cost of living adjustment for those staff members that apply to this policy.
I don't understand the motion.
The motion is to forego adopting ordinance number 1400 and to approve just a 2.5% cost of living adjustment for staff. And I can't state my reason until I have a second.
Second.
Can I, okay.
All right. Motion by Mr. Fredericks on the floor to not approve ordinance number, is it 1400? Make sure I didn't pull up Siri. I heard something going.
Mr. Mayor,
Yeah.
can you clarify who made the second?
Sorry, Councilmember Heffernan. Second the motion. To not adopt and forego the action item H and go with a 2.5% cost of living adjustment for exempt employees. Is that correct?
Correct.
Thank you. Mr. Fredericks.
My reason for doing this is simply because the mayor's come back tonight with a request to not approve which was first provided. I believe that there's more work that needs to be done, especially after receiving this memo from Mr. Ealing. I believe that there needs to be a review of the admin comp time, that there's right now the employees, they pay 0% of their health care costs. I think we need to take an entire look at it, but I have no objection to making sure that this is fast-tracked and done quickly, so this doesn't drag out again through the next budgeting cycle, so I think it needs to be done in short order to address the issues on there. Also on, if you're, this was taken out of order, but since we're dealing with the last 1/3, the employment agreement, I think it would be appropriate to start that employee at step 9 at $92,000 a year until, so that addresses that employment agreement that we're bringing forward this evening. And it also begins to fix the real issue here. And I think we really need to take a bigger picture towards all the benefits. And I think that this is a happy medium. And I think it should be done quickly. I'm not suggesting that this is something that's dragged out. I realize the reasoning why we want to do this. It makes a lot of sense. But it has to be taken a look at in its entirety. And there's a couple of things that were raised by Mr. Ealing in here that I want to make sure that if we're giving additional benefit, that the city has flexibility later. And if we need to go back to employees and renegotiate contracts, then that's exactly what we should be doing. So I think this is a happy medium. I think that delays this until we can take a look at it at the first part of the year, and that's the reason why I'm suggesting this tonight.
All right, Mrs. Heffernan?
I don't have a statement in support or against it. I'm seconded just for discussion. I have a couple questions. To clarify that this motion that is currently on the table does not update the step increases.
Correct. Mr. Fredericks is asking to forego the new salary grid.
And the step increases as previously proposed would have cost an additional $28,400 as per my notes. So can we do a estimation of what a 2.5% increase would cost?
You know, I do not have 2.5%, but we did estimate 2.75%.
Okay.
And we may need some clarification if a step increase would also be given that year, or if it's just a straight COLA. If, with a step increase, I'm estimating that it would be a reduction, let's see, it would be a reduction of $4,025 to the current budget. There's also an assumption, I was advocating not for a COLA for myself, because the salary study came back and said my salary is competitive and where it should be. So that would be putting myself from step 9 to step 8. So there's a slight increase, less than $300. A COLA at 2.75% with no step, the difference would be a reduction of $6,083. Again, this is an estimate I made tonight, so for the 2.5%, we have to rerun those numbers.
Okay, so just so I understand, we were looking at a increase to the budget of $28,000. Now we're looking at a savings of between $4,000 and $6,000.
Well, what I'm saying is that well, no, it would be a reduction from the 28,000. So when I say a reduction from the of $4,025, that would be subtracted from the $28,423.
Okay, so somewhere between $22,000 and $24,000 increase as opposed to the 28, in just
Correct.
general terms. Okay.
And can I clarify what Mr. Boyce said?
Yes.
I'm not suggesting making any changes to the current step plan. Whatever has already been approved is approved, and the employee, if they're due for a step increase, would automatically get that because it's already been approved. That's my reasoning there.
But this table's not approved yet.
Correct.
Correct.
All right. Further discussion?
Also, if there's no one else that would like to speak.
I'm not ready yet.
Mr. Fredericks?
I am not sure why tonight on this for ordinance number 1400, why not all of the information would have been included in the packet for consideration. We do not have much of the material that was reviewed when we looked at comparisons. That information was not included in the budget. There was also some talking points that were handed out the very first night that we had the reason why I wanted to make sure that that was done is for transparency and to make sure that that the folks who took the time to click on Ordinance 1400 when they were going through this and wanted to see it, that they had the same information that we had to make this decision. That was not included, and it should be included. All of the backup material that we have worked on should have been included in this ordinance when we went to adopt it tonight, and I'm not sure why. So just in the future, I'd request that it's included.
Mr. Jacobs?
Can I just ask a clarifying question to what's not being included? Because we have a whole section at the end that goes over the salary study. Yeah, which I
Not
thought
what
was also.
Hours each for comp time. I had to go back and included in what was left on the DS this evening, but it wasn't included in the agenda, unless I'm mistaken and I printed it off at the wrong time. I printed it off at the wrong time before and it was added 2 days later and I just missed it.
That information was in previous packets, but not included in this packet.
Okay. Ms. McCall?
I understand the reasoning behind Councilmember Frederick's motion, and I will vote yes on this motion. I'm disappointed, though, that the Human Resources Committee has done a lot of work, and I felt like we were on the path to making corrections. The comment that the mayor made this evening was that we were only raising some of them. The discussion was lengthy, and I even saw comments on Voice of Woodland, blah, 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 will she ever shut up, because I talked for so long. So, shout out to whoever said that. I'll be quieter this time. I looked through, sorry, I'm causing chuckles out there in the gallery. We're on a path forward where we were making some progress. We've made progress, I think, in the last 2 years as new staff has come on. We're continuing to make progress. My reasoning for why I agreed with this table. If we have, I guess so be it, but I'm extremely disappointed. And I guess I'm not going to get into any of the further of it. I have spoken directly with the mayor on what my disappointment is, but I will support Councilmember Frederick's motion. I have one question, though. Does that mean that then we are not going to approve the ordinance that has to look at raises? Is that the intention of this motion?
The motion itself is 1400 and refer we're going to proceed with a few employment contracts that need to be addressed. Actually, I think they might all need to be addressed.
Okay.
So there's a few things that I think we need to look at and just have an understanding before we add another element of more compensation and upward mobility in some of these positions.
Okay. I just wanted to clarify that we weren't voting on any of it and that the policy was out until next year as well. That was your intent, and so that's clarified. And so there's more work for the committee to do and more work for this new council to do next year, apparently. I guess one more question. Does it also mean that we are going to not address the efficiency study that was part of a motion in the budget at the last meeting? Was that motion passed last meeting, or is that part of this and so it's not going to happen?
I believe it was part of the motion.
Right, the motion passed last meeting.
Okay, as long as that's moving forward, I'm good.
Well, it's moving forward, so to speak, until we have a discussion, I would assume, at the retreat, that item will be on the agenda, and then presumably that there's going to be much more discussion then.
Okay.
And nothing, in my mind also, nothing prevents us also from referring ordinance number, if we really wanted to take it a step further, and referring ordinance number 1400 back to the Human Resources Committee
Okay.
as a separate motion.
Mr. Jacobs?
Just to comment on this one as far as referring it back to Human Resources Committee. First off, Councilmember McCall, thank you for talking about how much work has gone into it, and multiple people have, and it has been a lot of work. It's also different than anything else I think I've worked on with any other committee I've been on, and that typically something factual is brought to you that makes sense to vote yes or no on and bring it to the council. Not only is it not necessarily factual, we have to make opinions, and we have facts to work with, but everyone who's involved in bringing us the facts that we're going over benefits or doesn't benefit based on this as well. So I think it's a tricky thing for Human Resources Committee because the people bringing the information to us have to do with that. We also are very polarized on the council when talking about this. And I think if we refer it back to HR committee and the same HR people on there with the same non-exempt people bringing us the same information, we don't all necessarily agree with every council member on what needs to be looked at. I think we're in the same boat over and over. So I would like to see this not go back to HR committee until we've at least discussed it as a whole, whether in multiple workshops or at the retreat. And at that point, we can go back to make a recommendation. Otherwise, I don't think we're going to move this forward again.
Okay.
I think that's a great suggestion.
Ms. Humber?
I have to agree with Matt. We've worked on this for years and years trying to get it somewhere, and I was thrilled that we got it as far as we did. But we don't ever get any new blood in here, so I would like to not see it back in the HR committee. I would like to see us as a whole treat.
Excuse me. Anything further?
I guess just one
Ms.
more
McCall?
question. The motion is only for 2.8 as applicable to current step scale? Is that the motion?
I believe that we're just going, Mr. Fredericks?
The intent of the motion is to provide a 2.5% cost of living adjustment to staff. Staff is already on a step plan.
Okay.
So if there is a change to their step plan, I'm not suggesting that we do anything different with what has already been approved and passed. So if there's someone who should get a step plan increase, then we
Okay.
should get it.
That clarifies it. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor?
Mr. Boyce?
And also with the clarification that you were talking about the step 9, the $92,000 for the community development director.
I intend to try to address that when we vote on that.
When you get to action item F?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you. Anything further? All right, Mrs. Anderson, will you please take the vote to forego action item H, ordinance number 1400, and instead provide a 2.5% cost of living adjustment to staff on the current step plan.
Councilmember Chapman?
Aye.
Councilmember Jacobs?
Aye.
Councilmember Fredericks?
Aye.
Councilmember Humbert?
Aye.
Councilmember Heffernan,
Aye.
Councilmember McCall?
Aye.
Councilmember Rounds?
Aye.
All right, action item G, ordinance number 1398-2018, final budget, first reading.
I moved adoption of ordinance number 1398, first and final reading.
Second.
All right, motion on the floor, adopt by Councilmember Frederick, seconded by Councilmember Chapman, to adopt ordinance number 1398, 2018, final budget, first and final reading.
Before we get started, can I ask the changes that were made, and I believe they're on 123, with Mr. Boyce, if you could go over the changes that were made from last week to this week, and I know we had some discussion on CJAC as well, and I'd like to understand where we're at on that, and make sure that what this includes. So if you could go over this, that'd be great.
Okay. So the City Council, we'll start with Public Works. The City Council asked to get the opinion of the Public Works Director as she was on vacation and the proposed cuts were made. So we have that, and page 123 shows the Public Works Director's comments. So these suggestions...
I'm sorry, page 123 of, I'm looking at page 123, and it doesn't look like anything of what you're looking at.
I'm sorry, I was looking at I've got two packets in front of me.
The packet from the one that's online.
So it's
The
this
one that was
email.
published. The one that was published for...
Okay, got it. Thank you.
Okay, so, the right-hand column of Ms. Coleman's email shows what was incorporated into the budget. So you can see the changes. There were some concerns about moving the seasonal worker to minimum wage status. Ms. Coleman can go into more detail if you like. But the total cuts out of the park budget went down to $4,000 from $14,594. The street budget, you can see on the next page, 124 went from 4534 to 17250. So those cuts were incorporated back into the preliminary budget.
I'm going to jump in, Mr. Boyce, real quick. We did reach out to Ms. Coleman when she got back, and I did direct Mr. Boyce to just incorporate her her thoughts into the budget. And I know that it didn't come before council for discussion, but she's our subject matter expert when it comes to that department at this time. So with her stating some of the cuts were okay, some of the cuts were not okay, we went with that, and Ms. Coleman even went above and beyond and cut from some other areas to help supplement. So I appreciate her doing that. But just so council is aware that I directed Mr. Boyce to make those adjustments in the budget and not bring it to council. Ms. McCall.
Just a comment. Thank you. This is exactly what I'm looking for. I couldn't understand, I didn't understand that this was the sheet that was being referred to, because this is already completely and well explained of the why and what the risk is. This is exactly what I'm looking for as a council member to make a determination on how to make decisions. So thank you.
Sorry, Mr. Boyce.
And then I'd like to refer to the packet that was handed out this evening. After the ordinance, 2018 preliminary budget summary. Looks like this.
The one without the grid, or with the
Yes.
grid?
The one without the grid.
Okay.
Okay. The changes that were made between the online version and this one you see in front of you. The online version showed that there was an over and short of 25,652. Actually, it was over, representing the changes that were made to the general fund. That was included back, after the changes were made, that was included back to the fund balance. So now you see revenue at $5,610,071 matching expenditure at the same amount. Also, Park, the Park Fund, Fund 101. Again, the revenue was made to equal the expenditures, so the difference in the, after the cuts were made, was incorporated again into the fund balance. And the Street Fund, Fund 104, again, the same change. So both revenues and expenditures are equal to $790,734. Finally, the expenditure column at the bottom, because of those changes, the total changed. Again, revenues equal expenditures at $18 million overall, $809,572. Turning the page to the grid item, general fund department summary. Some changes were made, including an increase to the legislative council budget to help incorporate the salary commission changes. So it went from $37,450 up to $42,750. The general facilities budget, 518, went from $490,964 to $518,971, and that's based on the insurance premium increase we received. Let's see. So I believe those were the changes, and the fund balance changed slightly to $186,719,000 for the total of $5,610,071. Further below, the park with fund balance, the park fund with fund balance changed slightly. Proposed budget went to $190,788 from $186,788. The street fund, slight increase, $790,734 from $777,484. And there were slight changes to the water fund and sewer fund. And those were due to changes in the public utility tax. So that's a summary of the changes that occurred between the two budgets. If you'd like to get into more detail, we should.
Mr. Fredericks.
So we basically added with the council salary increase and the insurance, that was roughly $30,000 in additional expense.
Right.
And Ms. Coleman's suggested cuts were 17.5, so we covered a little over half of that. Is that what I understand?
Right.
Okay.
Okay. Mr. Chapman.
I want to give kudos and thanks to staff and everybody working hard on this. We originally came out with a increases, decreases, insurance and stuff, and then staff going back and sharpening the pencils with the mayor to find out where we can save more money, where not to save money and stuff. And I'm just glad everybody working together to get this thing done. So when I hear ODOT 30 before the 31st of saying, okay, we got it.
All right. Further discussion? Mrs. Heffernan?
So with these additional changes, how much total are we taking from reserves in order to cover this budget?
Just one moment while I find that figure. Okay, so from Fund 301, there's a contribution to the Park Fund of $33,433.
Sorry, $33,433?
Correct.
Okay.
There's also a contribution to Fund 230, that's payback of the bonds. Basically for the new bond issue that was to cover the additional costs of the fire station. So that's $43,546. There's a contribution to Fund 228 for the 2012 issue, $84,057. Contribution to Fund 229 for the 2013 issue for the police station, $12,600. The general fund is a contribution of $197,075. And I believe that is it.
So add those together, and that's the amount that our reserve fund is being lowered by.
Right.
Can I ask a clarifying question on that?
Mr. Fredericks?
I want to make sure that I understand what you just said. You just said that it's being lowered by that amount, but this is what you're taking out to make a contribution to other funds. There's also a deposit that's made into the reserve, so what is the difference between the two?
Right. So the ending fund balance is, we predict to have $1,026,764 at the end of the year.
Sorry, could you repeat that one more time?
$1,026,764. So after everything's said and done, that should be the fund balance. That's the projected fund balance.
For 2017 or ending fund balance for 2018?
Ending fund balance for 2018.
What is the ending fund balance for projected ending fund balance for 2017?
Okay, so for current year 2017, it's $900,441.
I'm sorry, could you please repeat that again?
$900,441.
So a net gain of 126,350?
Yes.
So, last meeting, we were discussing of having to use 64,000 that we needed to find cuts to cover, so now we're putting money into our general reserve.
I believe what we were discussing was the mayor's want to help cover the contract for the fire district and trying to make up that shortfall.
So there would have been, increase in our reserves would have been less without those additional cuts. So I'm talking increases and cuts in the same sentence, but we would have had less money transferred into reserves.
Correct.
Without those cuts.
Correct.
Ms. McCall? Ms. McCall?
I had a question and a comment. The first question was, so we were given an informal piece of paper without a heading board who reviewed the council and mayor's salaries. Is there no discussion on that or no vote by council? Does that just automatically go into effect the way that it's written? Or how does that, I guess I'm not clear on how that process works at the end.
So I've asked that question of the city attorney, so.
Salary. Actually, the whole reason why, a salary commission is kind of required is the whole constitutional issue about raising your own pay. So it's in the state constitution. The legislature enacted, a law that allows the commission to set salaries. And so what it does is totally removes it from what you say. In fact, the statute itself says that, what the salary commission recommends is what becomes kind of essentially the law of the city with respect to what you're paid. It overrides the budget decision you have to do. It's something that must be followed by you. The exception to it is the law also allows, even in the cases where we don't have the referendum power under the Code City statute, it has a separate provision to allow people to file a petition to undo what the salary commission recommends, either because it's too much or too little. So,
What if the issue is not the amount, but it's requirements of paperwork that have been added on to the recommendations from the salary commission? Because I have no problem with the monetary amount.
okay, insofar as the paperwork provision, I think the statute doesn't address it, but my opinion is that it's within the ambit of the council to set its own rules with respect to the paperwork, as long as it complies with state law. And I know of nothing that requires you to go into the things that were requested or put forth by the...
As long as it remains at or below the amount that has been recommended for the total compensation.
Well, I was going to answer a different question there. But the paperwork question, I think, is separate from the amount said is what I think is required. How you document it is a different question that's within the council's prerogative.
Okay, I can ask further questions on that at a later time.
Okay.
And then about, again, this cover sheet that's for the summary sheet. More than 6 years ago, we had some problems with council where we had some council members who said that they were not going to pass the budget if we did not pass the budget by December 31st. It has long passed of when we still now have 4 pages that I here and make sure I pass this before December 31st. And I find it offensive to have this in here. It's beyond being informational. It's those of us that have been up here, we're working to get it done, and I have 4 extra pages, and every single time that I print this out, that's telling me, oh, no, you'd better do this. So I would like to make sure that this is not part of the process in the next budget. We can be verbally apprised of this, and it does not need to be in the packet. It starts all the way back here.
Okay. Further discussion? Mr. Fredericks?
I don't know if this is helpful for the discussion, but there was a time where it was mayor versus staff. And I'm not suggesting that that's happening today. It's far from it. But there was a time where trying to make policy work, the item that gets it's on display because that, and I don't know if it's pushing back or what that is, but we're still seeing that some of that still takes place, and that's just to echo on Councilmember McCall's concerns there, that some of that still exists, and I'm not suggesting that that's coming from the mayor or Mr. Boyce. It just is the way it is, and it's unfortunate, but there was this attitude of we're all against the council, and you're either on my train, you need to be against council with us. And that's just the way it was. And I've been privy to some of those discussions that were taking place in weekly staff meetings that I found appalling. That is not occurring today, but some of that stuff still remains. And I think that that's one of those items. If I may, since this is part of the budget that we're talking about, which is the main motion that's on the floor, my hope is that this, the Salary Commission will meet again, in the hopes that it addresses the amount of what I would consider hoops that have to be jumped through, and staff time to address who's going to be at what meeting, and what is required of council members as far as tracking goes on these. We're all responsible people. If I don't come to a meeting after a certain amount of time, I can't be on the council. That goes for everyone on here. I noticed that the mayor's getting an increase, and I know he had requested that he not have his pay adjusted. But I also know that he's not required to document what meetings he's attending to in order to get paid and to fulfill your requirements as mayor. I find it to be a little concerning that I am required to track and document what meetings that I'm going to attend, which ones will be paid, which ones won't. I guarantee you, if I'm going up to Ridgefield to be in part of an RFA meeting, that is not covered under how this is documented unless I'm on the agenda, and that's not taken into consideration. The ones we're talking about here are specific examples of 2 meetings that Councilmember Humbird regularly attends on a monthly basis. But there are other meetings that council members attend as well. And my hope is that the commission either refine what they've given us or what we can do to work within the confines of the law to address what has been given here. And the only thing that I would add, on a positive note,
Yes,
I would
Mr.
like to
Richards.
echo the statement made by Mr. Chapman. I really appreciate the work that staff has done. I'm very proud of some of the things that I've seen. This is the 2nd year in a row with the Mayor Finn that we've received a balanced budget. So kudos to him for that. That's much appreciated. It makes it a lot easier to have this discussion when we're starting out at 0 and not having to come up with $500,000 out of whack. I appreciate staff's going through the budget and finding things. It's appreciated. And I know that it makes it a little bit tougher to do your jobs, and I realize that you may be coming to us with maybe a few more things because of how aggressive that you've been on addressing some of these cuts. So I appreciate it. And I've been through a few of these, and they've been very, very difficult and very, very easy. Processes that I've been through, and I appreciate the leadership of Mayor Finn and Mr. Boyce and the department heads who are really driving this. So thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Fredericks. further? Mrs. Heffernan?
2.5 years ago, a little more than 2.5 years ago, council requested a staffing analysis from our the police chief at that time. And ever since then, council has been aware of the need for additional funding and staffing in our police department. Addressing that, and was a big supporter of going to voters and asking them for additional monies through a ballot measure, and it was finally put on the ballot this year, 20 votes shy of passing. And I just want to personally and sincerely apologize to our police chief and to our officers and to our citizens that I failed. That's my failure. I take full responsibility. The challenge was placed on my shoulders to come up with sources of funding. And at a couple of meetings, I ventured timidly to suggest a couple ideas, and it was very obvious that the challenge was not an honest one, because there was, I don't believe, any intention of ever taking any suggestions seriously. And for not seeing that for what it was, again, that was my failure, that was my fault, and I take full responsibility. The budget in front of us has increases for council members and COLAs for staff and additional hirings in some departments and some incredible expenditures, especially for our water treatment, that I know that none of us anticipated or want to have to spend there. And I'm not against any of those things. Fair pay for staff and for council, and giving every department what they need is absolutely my desire. But there's nothing for the police department for a third year after receiving that report. For a third year, we've not made any real solid headway toward figuring out a solution or finding the will to try to fund that over other departments. And again, I take full responsibility. That's my failure, and that's my fault, and I am very sorry for that. I will leave this office as a failure, and it's only right that a new council will come along next year, and hopefully there will be more success in that area than there have been in the time that I was here. So as much as I would love to be able to vote yes on a budget once in the 4 years I've been here, I can't, because like I have to tell my own family no, that we can't afford that, because there's more pressing things that need to be here, and say as much as I would love to, there just isn't the money, and there's priorities that need to be addressed, and they're not being addressed. And so the answer is no. And I'm sorry.
Ms. McCall?
I would just disagree with Council with her voice, and addressing that. I too am very disappointed that we cannot add staff to the police. We did put that in front of the voters, and unfortunately, they chose not to pass it, and it was very close, but as my grandfather used to say, close only counts on horseshoes and hand grenades. It has to pass, and it didn't pass. I disagree that we haven't Being the chair of the Public Safety Committee and working for public safety since 2006, 11 years, we're sitting in a building that vastly improved working conditions for our police department. We have now a set and scheduled budget that replaces police cars, which we did not have previously. We have increased training, we've increased opportunities for our officers. We've added an evidence room in this building that is, other cities are coming to look at that. They're looking at our state-of-the-art filing system that we put here into this building. And public safety is not just the police, it's also the fire, and we've invested in that as well. Unfortunately, just like a household budget, we have multiple things that we have to pay for, and things break, and sometimes you have to reallocate funds. Water treatment systems fail. Things happen that we have to address. If the ballot measure would have passed to add police staff, we would be adding police staff. That was what our solution was going to be, of being able to add those officers. We're unable to do that with our current funds. I do believe that a lot of very hard work has gone into this budget. I think that it takes care of our. I believe that we are doing some very hard work. We have some very dedicated employees, and they are greatly appreciated. We'll greatly and totally appreciate always time. Extra and supporting this budget. There is never going to be a perfect budget that comes before us. Has a very strong effort towards it, and changes can be made as we move forward into the next year.
Further discussion?
If there's nobody else.
Oh, Mr. Fredericks.
Listen, this is a tough job, and we've all worked really, really hard in my mind to do everything in our power to ensure that before we go to the voters asking them for more money for the police department, that we have done our due diligence to make sure that we have not overlooked something. I've heard people say, well, you have an $18 million budget, why can't you find it? No, the answer is you have a $5,423,000 general fund budget. And of that, $2.8 million, or 52% of it, is your police and fire. So between all of the other general fund, what are you going to cut? Right now, the council is funding its priorities that we established when we passed our 20-year
comprehensive plan.
There was another one that we passed as well.
Capital facilities plan.
Thank you. That we came through, and then we are funding our priorities. So if the council as a whole wants to change the course and fund something different, it has the power to do that this evening. It has the power to do that every budget year. And so I have not seen a plan that works to take existing money out of our fund, or out of our budget, out of our general fund money, to fund additional officers. If I could have done that, or had the power to do that, I wouldn't have said, hey, let's go ask the voters. And so I think that does need to be part of our discussion as we go to the retreat about what are our next steps. Where do we go from here? These are tough decisions because you have to fund a city, and the police department does great things with fewer resources. We have limited funds to pull from. We have, so the question that I always have is, what specifically, I always try to come to this budget process, if there's something that I want, I try to come prepared to say, this is how I'm going to pay for it. Here's the plan to do what I want. Sometimes it works, many times it doesn't. But I give it a shot. I'd love to see a written plan that says this is what we can do. This is how we can manipulate the $5.4 million general fund to fund additional police, provided that the council as a whole agrees with the changing of the priorities, because that's what we'll be doing. We'll be changing our priorities. And so it's a tough deal. I wish we could. I wish there was a way. But I've got to make sure that there's street lights on. I've got to make sure that we have legal services so we're not paying legal bills for unnecessary legal claims. Got to make sure that we pay the courts, so when someone gets a speeding ticket, that they have those court costs, those aren't free. We have to make sure that the dollars are being spent. We have a finance department, we have a clerk's department. They also have not had any people in quite a few years. Every budget request that I go through has at least 2 or 3 additional staff that are requesting year in and year out. We have a limited amount of money, and I would love to have a discussion on priorities. If it's not where it needs to be, then we can adjust the plan. That's all I have.
All right, seeing nothing else. Action item G, adopt ordinance number 1398, 2018, final budget, first and final reading. Will the clerk please take the vote?
Councilmember Hubbard?
Aye.
Councilmember McCall?
Aye.
Councilmember Fredericks?
Aye.
Councilmember Heffernan,
No.
Councilmember Chapman?
Aye.
Councilmember Rounds?
Aye.
Councilmember Jacobs?
Aye.
All right, action item F. Action item F, authorize mayor to sign community development director employment agreement with A. Travis Goddard.
Move to authorize mayor to sign community development director employment agreement with A. Travis Goddard.
Second.
And, I'm not done with the motion.
Oh, and.
Not yet. And adjust, and bring him in at step 9 at a total of $91,548 and benefits of $19,179, and adjust all of the steps prior to step 9 as well.
Second.
All right, motion by Councilmember Fredericks, second by Councilmember McCall. Councilmember Fredericks.
Mr. Boyce, is that clear?
That is clear.
Okay. I have no discussion.
Councilmember McCall.
I would just like to say that I completely support this. I have worked with this individual in Clark County. I did not work directly with him, but I have seen his leadership capabilities. I know what some of his background is, how he has steered people through a recession, and been very resourceful in doing so, very resourceful in helping the public understand some of the complicated code and working with them to serve them. I'm very excited about the future of our planning department with bringing him on, and I am in full support of hiring him.
Further discussion? Will the clerk please take the vote on authorize mayor to sign community development director employment agreement with A. Travis Goddard, $148 with an adjustment to the salary schedule. Clerk, please take the vote.
Councilmember Rounds?
Aye.
Councilmember Fredericks?
Aye.
Councilmember McCall?
Aye.
Councilmember Jacobs?
Aye.
Councilmember Hubbard?
Aye.
Councilmember Heffernan,
No.
Councilmember
Aye.
Chair, accept a motion to adjourn.
Move to adjourn.
All for it?
Aye.
All opposed? I don't know the time.
When we drive down the field, he's always getting whatever he wants. Oh, wait, is this on?
Yeah.